Okay, so we're going to begin. Last week, we started a mini-series, which is part of the bigger series, the 70 Most Difficult Questions in Judaism. The mini-series deals with soulmates. One of the questions was, what is exactly a soulmate? Something that we all want to have, something that we want to stay with for the rest of our lives. Many people are confused by the meaning of what a soulmate is, zivugim. And we covered a little bit about the meaning last week. What is a zivug? What is supposed to happen? Today we're going to cover a very difficult and sensitive question. For those of us who already think we know what a zivug is, then why is it that there are so many singles, men and women, in this generation? Why haven't they found their zivug yet? Why aren't they married? Next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll talk about another very important topic, which is a continuation of tonight. Tips for those who have not found their zivug yet, what they need to do. Other than some of the advice that I will mention today, tips on dating, tips on how to recognize who that soulmate is. Also a very important topic for those of you who are single, and even for those of you who are married. After that, B'ezrat Hashem will cover another important topic, and that is, after you finally met the right one, hopefully, how to stay together. How to stay married together. For some, it's easy to get married, but it's a whole different story to stay married. So that, B'ezrat Hashem, will follow. So today we need to understand what's going on in this generation. This is a phenomena that did not exist in the past. In our parents' and grandparents' generations, most people wanted to get married, were able to get married, and were able to stay married. So we need to understand what is going on, what is different about our generation. Obviously, I'm not the only one admitting it or making a point of it that there is a problem. The non-Jewish world is aware of it. Very recently, there was a very big article in one of the most important newspapers in this country titled, "Why are there so many singles?" So obviously many people are aware of it, and nobody has a real answer for it. Even though there are explanations, there are some explanations for the problem, but because there's more than one, nobody can really pinpoint and say, this is it. Unfortunately, there are quite a few reasons for this problem. But the fact that I found very interesting is that if the Goyim are talking about it, if they're writing about it, then it's not just a problem that we have in the Jewish community, it is a problem that is quite spread out everywhere. But there is a big problem with this observation of mine. If this is the fact that what we have, the problem that we have, they have, the problem that they have, we have, you know what that means? It means that perhaps the reasons why they are still single, or some of them, is the same reasons why many Jews are still single. In other words, the influence of the street is very powerful. And that's a fact. We know that the environment has tremendous influence. But if the Goyim are admitting to a problem, and we share that same problem, then unfortunately, many of the reasons, not all, but many of the reasons why many Jews are not getting married, have not found their soulmate yet, or whatever, could be is for the same reason that the Goyim are not getting married. And unfortunately, I'm already preparing you that many are, of course, not married for reasons that is totally up to them. And I will explain the reasons a little bit later. First of all, we have to make it very, very clear to ourselves that the one who's responsible for zivugim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, did not retire. Lo yatsa lepensia. He did not go out on pension. He's still around doing his job. That is the job of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the Almighty. He is the one that's mezavek zivugim, and we have to remember that at all times. He is the one that brings people together. So he's still doing that. And because he's still doing that, it is very possible that some who are still single and who are over the age of 35, and I chose 35 because I consider 35 halfway to 70, right? 70 is average lifespan. So those who have passed 35, who are not married yet, they've lived already half their life. Even them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because He's the one that's Mezavek Zivukim, it's very possible that they've already met their soulmate when they were 22, 23, 24, 25, which is the normal age in our Jewish circles, religious circles, of getting married. That's what is the norm. Not everybody does. So because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still responsible and is still doing an excellent job in being Mezavek Zivugim, He knows what He's doing, it's very possible that those who are not married yet and who are over 35 have already met at some point, because He brings people together. You may not have wanted, you may not have been prepared, whatever, but He does His job. And if He does His job, He does His job at the right time. So it's very possible, since He's still involved, that people who are over 35 did at one time meet their zivug. Now, this generation, as I pointed out, is very different than the previous generation. What stands out, there are many things that are different. Obviously, we have cell phones, and we have microwaves, and we have a lot of things that is different in this generation than the past generation. But what stands out, and that is what we're talking about, is the fact that not only are less people getting married, latest statistics show in the non-Jewish world that only 50% of men and women of marriageable age are married. What's with the other 50%? Well, a small percentage are widows who don't want to remarry again. Okay, that's a small percentage. But a great percentage of over 40%, depending on if it's women or men, simply are not getting married. There are some differences between the various classes, black, white, Hispanics. Obviously, there's some differences in the country that you go to, but this is the United States of America. That is the statistics in this country, that 50% of adults of marriageable age are not married. So that's one of the differences between this generation and the previous generation, where if you go back 35, 45, 50 years, the statistics were 70, 75, 80% of adults were married. So that is therefore a noticeable difference between this generation and the past generation. Another noticeable difference is ikuvim, which we'll talk about too tonight. Why are people being delayed? They're eventually getting married, but they're getting married at a later stage in life. Why is that? That's also a noticeable difference between this generation and the past generation. And then you have, unfortunately, another phenomena that is also quite evident. The difference between this generation and the past generation is that there are more divorces. In the olden days, not too many people got divorced. It was not so common. You did not hear about it too often. The further you go back, it is rare. It happened when necessary, but it was not common as it is today. And I have a feeling, and I think all of you will agree at the end after you hear all the reasons, that some of the symptoms of delaying marriage or not getting married, it has to do with the same symptoms of why people are getting divorced. Now, I'll just tell you very briefly, before I begin to give you all the reasons, that it becomes very apparent that there's no shortage of zivugim. Anybody who ever tells you there's not enough women, there are not enough boys, they don't know what they're talking about. We just said before that Hashem does His job. He's prepared everyone a zivug, so that can never be the reason. Even though it's true, they say there are more females than there are male, you don't have to worry about it. Our job is to find the right one and not to worry about what's going to happen, that there are more females than there are male. And I'll allow your imagination to think of how that is resolved. Basically, if you were here last week, you can figure that one out. In case you weren't, I'll just tell you, a man can marry more than one woman. Not necessarily at the same time, but stage one, wife number one. Stage two, wife number two. And they both are very, very happy. There's a lot of possibilities. That should never be an excuse that there's a shortage. There's no shortage, and He knows what He's doing. So what is the problem? The problem, in a nutshell, is in us, not in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should never think for a moment that there's something wrong in the way He's handling the whole subject called zivugim, marriages. There's obviously something wrong in us, and that is what's leading to delays, that is what's leading to not wanting to get married, and that is what's leading to divorces too. If we want to spell it out in just a couple words, what's the problem with this generation? Just in a couple words, I can say it in a couple words. People do not want to work hard. If you want it in a couple words, people today do not want to work very hard. And I'll tell you what happens when you get into an accident. When you get into a car accident, so you call your insurance, right? They send an adjuster. And what is the adjuster's job to do? To estimate the damage. Why does he want to estimate how much the damage is? So you can know how much money to give you. However, there's another reason behind the estimate, behind actually seeing the damage. It could be that it may be too expensive to repair. And then, what does he call it? A total loss. It doesn't pay for them to do certain repairs. It's too expensive to repair. So they throw it away, junk it, and they give you the money, go buy yourself a new car. Even though a newer car may be more expensive, but that's too bad. If it doesn't pay for them, they're not going to give you that benefit of repairing your old car. Today, when people see that a situation that they think is beyond repair or too difficult to repair, they give up and they throw it away and say, let me buy myself a new wife. It's easier than to have to repair the old relationship. If it's too difficult to repair, if it's too expensive, you throw it away and you get yourself something new. That is what's going on in many people's minds. That's the idea. They don't want to work hard. But this is just in a couple words. It's much more complex. But in a couple words, this is what's going on, especially in this country, but all over the world. This generation, people do not want to work hard enough. However, this generation is very lucky. We do have something called crazy glue. You know what you can do with crazy glue? Something that was beyond repair 25, 35 years ago, you can actually still save if you put a few drops of crazy glue. Do you know when people take out the crazy glue from the closet? When would you take it out? If you really want to save something because it has sentimental value. That's expensive china that you got from your grandmother. Chaval. What a shame we would be, what a loss to just throw it away in the garbage. So you try to save it. It's never like the original one. It's not like a brand new one, but you're not going to throw it away because you have something called crazy glue this day. It's worth trying. You may still be able to use it somewhat. It will at least look normal, not broken, right? But that's only when it has some sentimental value. When the object that is broken, the marriage, has no value whatsoever, people will just tend not to even try to put crazy glue on it, not to try to get any help to put it together, the pieces. Yeah, just throw it away. That is what's going on today. Now, what about the couple who has lived for 10, 12 years together, somewhat in peace? Let's talk about them for a moment. We're still not talking about singles. We're talking about a symptom that is related. People getting divorced. But people have lived together, have had a decent life. They got along somewhat. They had differences. It wasn't 100% comfortable. Neither of the two felt that they are in paradise. But as we say in Hebrew, sahvu, they schlepped. They dragged along for 10, 12 years. And then they got divorced. Then it falls apart. Why does it fall apart then? So the rabbis tell us something that you may have heard before that is very may be familiar to you, that the difference between Ish and Isha is very small. Ish has a Yud, Isha has a Hey. They two have two common letters together, the Aleph and the Shin. They're very similar. They're somewhat different too, right? However, how can these two different but somewhat similar people stay together? How can a male and a female, a man and a woman that nevertheless are different, be together? Only because he has the Yud and she has the Hey, and that represents the Shekhinah. If they have Hashem in their life, if they have Hashem in their home, then it is possible to work things out. You know why? Because each one will say, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. You're not going to listen to what I have to say. Let's listen to what Hashem has to say. You know, when people have this kind of an attitude, let's not think of ourselves. Let's not think what's good for us. Let's think what he wants. And how are we going to know what he wants? He doesn't have an email. Right? He doesn't have, how do you communicate with Hashem? You go to a rabbi, you go to a third party, and after all, we're not objective, we're subjective, we're biased, so we go and find out from a real rabbi who's objective, tell us what is the truth, since we're both blinded. We both want to have the Shekhinah in our home. We both want to do the right thing. Oh, you want to do the right thing? What's best? Then, of course, your chances for success are better. You're going to stay together because the Shekhinah resides in your home. If the Shekhinah is in one's home, if there's Kedusha, there's holiness in one's home, the chances are better that the two will succeed. What happens when the two remove the Shekhinah? Then, of course, the Yud and the Hey disappear, and what is left? The Aleph and Shin. The Aleph and Shin represents fire, Ish, and the Ish consumes the house. What kind of a fire? The fire of Mahloket, of some sort of disagreement. That is the basic recipe for making a house fall apart. Some sort of Mahloket. Some sort of Mahloket. Ish, fire. Now, what is the one cause that's the most responsible for driving away the Shekhinah? So we just said Mahloket is one of those causes. But let me perhaps surprise you with another important idea of what removes the Shekhinah of the house. For those of you who were here a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about the power of Tum'ah, of impurity. People do underestimate the power of Tum'ah in this generation. This is the generation that has the most Tum'ah. As the rabbis tell us, that the generation will go down to the lowest level, to the 50th level of Tum'ah. This is the generation before Mashiach. The generation that will go to the level of heresy, of Kfirah. The 50th level, a very difficult level of Tum'ah to get out of. And we explained that the greatest threat to Kedusha is Tum'ah. Tum'ah drives away Kedusha. It has tremendous powers. And when one allows the Tum'ah to penetrate one's home, the Kedusha cannot stand there. The Shekhinah does not remain there. Could you imagine somebody bringing in all the pornography, the internet, the TV, all the dirt, all the filth that is outside? You think the Shekhinah will want to stay there? You think that is a holy home? Something is going to happen. It's going to make that house fall apart. The Kedusha cannot live in that home. The Kotzker Rebbe once asked his students, can you tell me, can any one of you tell me, where is Hashem? So they all told him the famous pasuk, Hashem, Malek kol haaretz kevodo. Hashem is everywhere. He says, no, you got it wrong. Hashem is only where you let him in. A lot of people don't let him in into their homes, so he's not there. And I added, similarly, you can also say, Hashem is everywhere unless you drive him away, which is a similar idea. Either you let him in, or he's not there. Or you do something to drive him away. And that Tum'ah, I guarantee you, causes tremendous problems in the home. All sorts of problems, but we're not talking about divorces today. That's a different subject 2 weeks from now, B'ezrat Hashem, unless we do something for Hanukkah special. But in 2 more sessions, we'll talk about how to keep the marriage intact. But one of the problems that causes a marriage to fall apart is the introduction of Tum'ah into the home, which allows the Kedusha to leave. And that is, of course, when the whole house falls apart. Then comes the third component, of which this generation has in abundance. This generation has an abundance of chutzpah. The rabbis tell us, Dor sheben David ba, the generation that Mashiach will come, chutzpah yizgeh. There will be an increase and abundance of chutzpah. Now, do you know, just for you to know what chutzpah means, there's a special saying that the rabbis use that is incredible, that it never existed. We always had chutzpah, but the following expression never existed. Oivei ish anshei beito. One's enemies are the members of his own family, his own wife, the kids. The children's lack of respect for their parents. When did we see something like that in previous generation? Never did that ever exist. It was maybe 1 in a million. Children's lack of respect for a father or mother. As soon as the father sat down, they were all trembling. They all were in awe, the respect. Completely different. And you have to, in order to appreciate that, you have to speak to somebody from that generation, how it was. Never was it heard of chutzpah, especially the degree that you have today. Now, what does this do? This abundance of chutzpah in this generation, what that does is it creates a certain tashtit, as we call it in Hebrew, a certain framework a certain foundation over which people are building their lives. And because their lives are being built on a corrupt and rotten foundation of chutzpah, of disrespect, all of their midot, all of their character, all of their personality, and all of their nature will suffer. You know what they say about putting an apple next to a rotten apple? One rotten apple makes the makes the rest rotten. This one terrible midah of chutzpah, of disrespect, of a lack of respect for those who are older than you, a lack of respect for the previous generation, a lack of respect for rabbis, it's all the same. Means that all the midot that one may have or not have will be affected. That is the foundation, the respect for the previous generation. Why were the rabbis concerned about chutzpah? The rabbis were concerned about chutzpah because if a child does not respect his parent, he will not respect the parent's religion. Why have people moved away from Judaism? The father, the grandfather was religious. How could a child or a grandchild go against his father or grandfather? The only way he can go against is if he's disrespectful. By going against, by intermarrying, by assimilating, when one's father and grandfather are still alive especially, that is the utmost disrespect for an individual. When you go against his religion, when you go against his beliefs, you couldn't care less for what he did, for what he believed in. That is a terrible midah. Now it means that one will not have respect for rabbis. One will not listen to what the rabbis have to say. Then where's the Jewish continuity? Where is the safeguarding of the Torah? If there's no kavod, everything will be lost, chas v'shalom. So the chutzpah, being so prevalent in this generation, is a tremendous problem for all the midot, for all the personality, for all the character of certain individuals. And what happens is when the chutzpah reaches its height, as the rabbis tell us, pnei ador ke pnei kelev, the face of the generation will be like the face of the dog. Nobody will care what everybody else does or say. A kelev is chatzuf. A kelev just doesn't care. One commentary says the reason why it's called pnei ador ke pnei kelev is because the dog is always looking back to see who's running after him. That even the leaders of the generation, the panim, the pnei ador, will be like a dog. They will never do the right thing. They will always do what's in their best interest. They will always look back behind their shoulders. Kelev is symbolic of chutzpah, of audacity. And that is what describes the generation that we're living in. And that is, of course, part of the explanation of why the children are much more difficult today to raise and to educate, because they are also infected with this chutzpah. All right, so we have chutzpah. We have a very rotten foundation. And we said that this rotten foundation affects the entire persona, the entire character of a person. But it does something else also. Because people have so much chutzpah, because their midot are so rotten, there's no emphasis on, or desire or interest on working on the midot. Today, very few people work on themselves. You know what people do instead? They work on the physical body. They exercise. They go on a diet. They watch what they eat. Everything has to do with their physical body, nothing with the neshama. A person, a Jew especially, should be wanting to work on his neshama, should be wanting to refine his character, his midot. No, there's no emphasis anymore, except for the very few people who are working on themselves. There's no emphasis on the midot, and on the contrary, there's an emphasis on the physical body. Now, there's also an emphasis on advancement, pursuing a career, making money, having the American dream, a house and a dog, right? Having all the pleasures and all the goodies of this life. What happens to the individual when he emphasizes the homer, the materialism? There's a balance, right? The guf and neshama are in a balance. There's a body and there's a neshama. There is a scale, a balance. When you emphasize the homer, the physical, more than the spiritual, then you're tipping the scale. If you give more importance, if one gives more importance to that which is physical, to that which is materialism, he will automatically affect the scale of that which is spiritual. The spiritual will lose value, it will go up, this one comes down. That's what happens. It will outweigh. And his whole entire life, the life of an individual and the life of this family, will be materialism and very little spirituality. And this, of course, breeds other problems. When a person becomes very materialistic, vayishman yeshurun vayiv'at, a person becomes very comfortable, he emphasizes materialism, he has no interest in religion anymore. Shabbat, let's get it over with. Oh, is it over already? Can I get my cigarette? There's no kedusha, there's no interest in that which is spiritual, ruhani. Everything is material. Their whole head is immersed in materialism. And this, of course, affects the relationship. This affects one's relationship with Hashem. It affects everything. So this is what is happening as a result of the emphasis of the body instead of the emphasis of the neshama. There's therefore no one working hard, at least, on refining his character. Now, as a result of that, what does this mean? If people are emphasizing that which is material more than the neshama, you know what this does to people? It makes them look more like behemot v'chayot than really bnei adam. A true ben adam has that tselem elokim on him, has the image of God on him. And the image of God means that he behaves in a certain way. As the rabbis tell us, we have to behave ourselves according to the ways of Hashem. Mahu rachum, afatat yerachum. He's compassionate, you be compassionate. He's kind, you be kind. He's tolerant, you be tolerant. That is, if we had the tselem elokim, we would want that, because that is what the neshama wants. But when a person removes the tselem elokim, when he emphasizes that which is material and physical, when he drives away the kedusha, he's no longer attracted, he's no longer pulled, he has no more interest in the spiritual. He therefore becomes more like a behemah. And what is a behemah? How is a behemah different than a human being? A behemah is interested only in itself. Behemot don't do other people favors. Right? They have no interest in helping. Behemot don't know what generosity means. They don't know what tolerance means, what kindness and patience. All the important ingredients for saving a marriage, behemot don't have that. When a person becomes a behemah, what does that do to the concept called love? He loves himself more than he loves the other person, because that's what a behemah does. Have you ever heard somebody say in English, I love fish? I love fish. I love schnitzel. If you really love fish, then why do you eat them? If you love something, you wouldn't want to destroy it, right? You wouldn't want to consume it. Obviously, people use the wrong word to describe something that they very much like. But in a sense, they're not really making a mistake. They're really describing their real feelings. Their understanding of their feelings of love are selfish. It's that they want something for themselves. They love something because they want it for themselves. Well, I have some news for you. As a result of people being more like animals, as a result of people loving themselves, their whole concept of ahava, therefore, is misguided. It's something that they want for themselves, right? Guess what happens? The first cause of people not wanting to get married, remember, we're separating this. We're going to talk about those who are still single, not because of their own volition, but those who have no interest in getting married, it's very simple. They don't want to get married. Why? Because they get that selfish love for free. A man can find a girlfriend and have that which he calls love for free. As I heard one Mexican tell me, why buy a cow when you can get milk for free? I don't know if they have that saying in English, but why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? I think you understand what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So if that's the love that they're looking for in this generation, in Los Angeles for sure, it's free in many places. That's what I'm told. I don't know too much about it, but that's what I'm told. It's free. At least you can get it for free. You can get a friend. You can live together. So why get married? So you understand, this is reason number one for those who have chosen not to get married. Okay, let's go to reason number two. Reason number two, it's a little bit sad, but we're talking about an individual, man or woman, who were raised in a broken home. The parents got divorced. Parents got divorced. So the second generation says, well, it's very risky business getting married. I'm afraid that I may make the same mistakes as my parents did. I don't want to end up in a divorce. Now, is he right or wrong? I want to ask you, what do you really think? Somebody has this problem, this dilemma, this hesitation. He's afraid of making the same mistakes. Do you know that there is a chance that he will make the same mistakes? His concerns are valid. His concerns are valid. There is a chance, at least 50%. Maybe not when he's 24, but maybe when he's 54. When he loses his job, that he's going to get very upset and do the exact same thing his father did or his mother did. He saw it. He lived with it. He experienced it. It may happen. These are psychologically valid concerns. Does that mean he should not get married? No. Not necessarily, because he can turn out to be a gem. The experience has helped him, has hardened him, and you never know. He may have gained something from it, or because of his training and his education, or if he has a good friend or a rabbi who will teach him, he may be able to control himself. He may be able to have a much better life than his parents had. Nevertheless, this is one of the reasons why people hesitate to get married. Reason number 3, some people simply don't want the responsibilities. What did I say earlier? In a nutshell, people don't want to work hard. This goes along with that too. People don't want all the responsibilities that marriage entails. Reason number 4, some simply don't want to get married because they don't want to have children. Well, it's still possible to get married and not have children, but they think it's automatic, it's a package deal. If you get married, you have children, and that's true. Part of the mitzvah is to get married, to multiply, but they don't want to have children. For whatever reason. We're not talking about their reasons for not having children, but this happens to be one of the reasons. Now, by the way, I'm quoting to you, not what I thought in my mind, because obviously I have to present to you here things that have been tested, things that are valid, things that have been proven. So what I'm quoting to you is what the experts are saying. I'm going to add just some ideas when we talk about why people are still single. But now I'm talking about why people are not getting married at all. Why are they choosing not to get married? And these are all reasons, and there are many reasons, that the experts have put together by interviewing those who have chosen not to get married. So some don't want the responsibilities, some don't want to have children, and because they don't want the children, they don't want to get married. Then there's some who don't want to get married because they don't want to get entangled in financial issues. Marriage can be expensive, especially if you get divorced. Half of what is yours belongs to your wife, at least in California. It could be expensive, especially if she's high-maintenance girl, Jewish princess, you know. Yeah, it could be very expensive. So some don't want the financial entanglement that marriage involves, and that is why they don't get married. Now, based on all the reasons that I just gave you, they have made the decision not to get married. Hashem did not stop them. Hashem did not intervene. Hashem did not do anything. On the contrary, what did we say earlier? They may have met their soulmate too. They may have actually met them, and for whatever reason that they have, even if it's a terrible experience that they've seen by others, it does not justify them. Obviously, what do they need to get over it? They need retraining of Jewish values, the right Jewish perspective of looking at life. They need to understand the importance of marriage. These individuals, men or women, have to have their minds reprogrammed, retrained as to why, nevertheless, it is important to settle down and get married and not worry too much. So they need to have their mind changed, their values changed. Now let's go to another couple reasons of why people do not get married. And these are more personal experiences in their personal life. There is one individual, this happens a lot to women especially, who don't want to get married because they think they're not beautiful enough, that nobody's going to want to marry them. They look at themselves in the mirror and they say, well, I'm a bit overweight, or this or that. And there are women like that. There are individuals like that who simply they've convinced themselves that they're not beautiful enough and perhaps nobody would want them anyway. Now, I said last week, and I'll say it again, everybody has a zivug. Hashem takes care of even the difficult cases. So that is a total lack of bitachon in Hashem and in yourself, perhaps. You have to have confidence in Hashem that's going to work out. There are those who are not self-confident in themselves. They have an image problem. They suffer from a lack of self-esteem. And because of that, they think, well, I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to succeed. It's too difficult. There's some lack of confidence in themselves. There are others who, throughout their childhood years, people have made fun of. For whatever reason, people made fun of them. And because of that, they also suffer of an image problem, thinking that they're going to have a difficult time finding somebody that they can love and that they will love them. What do we do with these individuals? These individuals need a little bit of encouragement. They need a little bit of direction. They need to be helped to be able to get out of this problem that they have, this mindset that they have, lack of confidence and so forth, that should not be in their way. And it shouldn't be. Nothing should be in their way. But what does it take? It takes tremendous amount of willpower. And the willpower can only come about if somebody has a clear understanding of why it is important to get married. Why it is important, nevertheless, to try. Why it is important to have bitachon Hashem, that He will get you the right person for what you need. And everybody has different needs. As we said last week, a soulmate is what you need, not necessarily what you want. And that is one of the mistakes people make. They want something, but who said that is what you need? Hashem says, I want to give you what you need, what's best for you. And what's best for you may not necessarily be what you want, the idea of what you have in mind or what you want. Hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll get what we need and what we wanted. But that's not always the same. So there are some individuals that simply need more direction. They need to be encouraged, not left alone, because if they're left alone, they'll stay alone for the rest of their life. Now we're going to talk about another group of people. Unfortunately, you may not be aware of, but there are such cases, and actually we hear about it almost every day in the paper, unfortunately, that as a children, they've experienced some trauma. They were abused. Different kinds of abuses. And as a result of an abuse, this girl, who's right now 27, does not want to have an intimate relationship with any man. Do you know that this exists? Because of some abuse, because of something that happened to her in her life, she does not want to have that kind of a relationship with another man. There are some who put their trust in a friend, and that friend betrayed their trust, and now, because they were the victims, they don't want to give their trust to anybody else in this world. They've lost trust in people. These two people who have lost trust, who have been abused, who have experienced some trauma, they need urgent psychological or psychiatric help. Medication may not do it. A rabbi may not be equipped to give them what they need. He may, but not necessarily. You need a professional to help these people come to a closure, as they call it, a closure of their past experience so they can continue living a normal, productive life. What do all of these have in common? The ones that we just mentioned? All of these have in common that they have chosen not to get married. On their own. Some of them, of course, have it more difficult because of the trauma. That's true, but it's still their own decision. Hashem gives every human being the tools to overcome his problems. He could use some help. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not demand of you something that you're not equipped to do. You are facing a challenge, you have a problem, you can overcome it. And if you have bitachon in Hashem, and you are open, Hashem will send you the right people to help you too. You have to want to be helped. If one, of course, locks himself up and doesn't want to hear anyone, then he or she has made the decision not to be helped. So one should never say, oh, he's stuck for the rest of his life, he or she, That is the way Hashem wanted it to be. No, Hashem wants everyone to get married. It's a mitzvah. It is healthy. It is the right thing to do. And Hashem will make it happen. He will help you. He will send you people, whether it's a matchmaker, it's a psychologist, whatever it is that you need to overcome that obstacle, that problem. You still have the decision. But I can't help myself. Yes, of course you're going to have a hard time helping yourself. But you have to just want the help. And then somebody will help you. That ability to want help, everybody has. Just say, I want help. So we've spoken about some individuals who have a difficult time not getting married because they have made the decision not to get married. Now let's talk about delays. And that's the one that many single people are very curious about. Because, Chaz v'Shalom, I don't suspect there's anybody here, I hope not, that intentionally chooses not to want to get married. But there are people like that. So I needed to bring you a list of reasons that there are individuals out there, Jews and non-Jews, who have chosen not to get married for whatever the reasons are. And they need help. But now we're going to talk about the ones who want to get married. They just somehow haven't found a soulmate or haven't found the right one. What's going on over here? Obviously, whenever we're talking about ikuvim, delays, it's a different problem. It's a different phenomena. It's not necessarily a problem. But it's handled differently. This generation, there's basically three kinds of ikuvim, three kinds of delays. This generation has an ikuv that did not exist years ago. That is a delay that is brought about by oneself. People are going to college these days. To become a lawyer or a doctor takes 6 to 8 years. Go back 100 years ago, in Poland, who became a doctor? Very, very few Jews. And you didn't have to spend so many years in college to become doctors either. A lawyer? I haven't heard of a Jewish lawyer. 150 years ago in Poland, who heard of a Jewish lawyer? Maybe there was one, but not many like we have today. Life was very different. Careers were basically how you made your money. You had a shop, you had a profession, or, you know, you were either shoemaker, carpenter, tailor, butcher, or a thief. You know, there were people who made that a profession too. And that's in every generation you had thieves. Yeah, Jews too, unfortunately. Yeah, you had thieves. But anyway, you didn't have the situation you have today that people actually are spending so many years in college. So that is a postponement or a delay that is brought upon themselves on their own, voluntary. Now, what does that do? That is very dangerous. Because even though it's very nice that you want to get a degree and you want to have a source of income, but you're pushing off the date that Hashem had in mind for you to get married. Hashem had in mind for you to get married at the age of 23. As I said in the very beginning, that's a normal age. How do I know that's a normal age? Because the rabbis tell us, at 18 you're ready. You're mature enough. If you can be drafted to the Israeli army and to the American army at 18 and carry an Uzi, then you have enough responsibilities and maturity to get married to. That is what the rabbis tell us, Does that mean you have to get married at 18? No, you don't have to, but you're ready. Some boys got married at bar mitzvah. Their bar mitzvah was their chuppah too. In the past, there was sometimes a need to marry young men and young girls early, fast, for all sorts of reasons. But the normal age was 18 and above. How much above? It depends if the boy was learning Torah. The only excuse, valid excuse, that the rabbis accepted for one to push it off, if he was presented with the right one, right, was he wants to sit and learn Torah. Why? Because once he sits and learns Torah, several things happen. Number one, the Torah protects him from sin, hopefully, if he's serious about learning. So he won't have the problem of being without a woman. Number two, if he's really osek b'Torah, Hashem will not make it that he will lose his zivug because of him picking Torah. She says, you want to learn a little bit of Torah? Fine, I'll make her wait for you. Number three, learning of Torah could be very good. He's going to become more knowledgeable, more learned, be a better father, a better husband. After all, once you get married, you won't have as much time to sit and learn Torah. So he's doing a good and normal thing, an acceptable thing. Learning Torah was therefore basically more or less the only excuse. Other than that, rabbis encouraged as soon as possible. People got married, depending, of course, on whenever it was bashet, whenever it was meant to be. And that could have varied anywhere from 18 to 25 on the average, years ago. Why doesn't that happen today? So reason number one I gave you is people on their own have chosen to push off marriage until they've made more money, until they've built themselves up, bought a house, and got themselves a job. Now the Rambam says that that is what you should do. The Rambam says the right order is make some money, buy a house, and then get married. Do you know what happens if people do that today? They'll have a lot of white hair by the time they're ready to get married. If they have to wait to first buy their home and put down a down payment of, what is it today, $200,000 just for down payment? Today it's not possible to do what the Rambam is suggesting. Of course he'll be beautiful, right? But it's not possible. Nowhere in this country can you do that. You're going to wait. It's going to take you a few years unless you hit the lottery, unless you get the help. Therefore, you don't buy your house right away if you can. The first thing you do is you get married. But you should have an idea of what you want to do for a living. That you want to do. You want to have an idea of what you want to do for a living because you don't want to beg people for money, right? You want to be self-sufficient. You want to have some source of income, unless you're learning for a year or two or three in the kollel, and they will support you. But other than that, you have to have an idea of what you want to do, but not to wait till you buy a house, till you have your own home. That's impossible. So therefore, one has to make himself available and ready to get married as soon as he hits 21, 22 for men, and as soon as she becomes 17 or 18 for a girl. Unless you live in Mexico City in the Syrian community, they grab you when you're 14. Yeah. You know, at least they reserve you. You know, and by the time you're 15, there's an engagement, and 16. If you're already 17, 18, you're too old already. Yeah, what is that? In Morocco too? Yeah. So anyway, that is the ideal age. The ideal age, why not start off life together when you're young, when you're in your early 20s? Okay, unless you have a good excuse. So therefore, these individuals who have chosen to postpone it because they want to get a job, they want to therefore get a degree, they want to get their PhDs first, they're not doing the right thing. It is not acceptable, it's not correct to do that. Get married, and if you want to pursue your degree after you're married. Who's going to help you together? Well, don't worry. There's 4 people to help you. Her parents and your parents. Hopefully a little bit, and maybe you'll work at nights. You don't have so much expenses when you're first married. You don't have a good excuse to push off your wedding just because you may not have enough money to pay the bills. You don't have to live in a 3-bedroom apartment when you first get. You can live in a basement. You go today to Yerushalayim, in Bate Ungaran, in Bate Polin there, and you will find how people lived just 50, 60 years ago. One big room. That was the kitchen. That was the bedroom. Parents' bedroom, kids' bedroom, everybody. They had a small little corner for a kitchen. You can still see those places today. And you know what they did when the first child got married? The father brought a bunch of bricks, and he made a dividing wall in that same one big room. Gave a little bit to his daughter. You can still see it today. Some people are still living in that kind of a house. Very, very simple. Now, I'm not telling that that's what you should do. That's what you should, they have bathrooms outside too. People like to have the bathrooms indoors these days. So life has changed a little bit. But people knew to be happy with the little bit they had. They did not look for luxuries. They knew that marriage was important, having kids, having a family. And therefore, they did not never think of pushing it off until they had enough money to buy a home. So this is a very sad reason to not getting married on time. If all you're doing is just to make more money, get a degree, you may lose your real other half, your real soulmate. She's not going to wait around necessarily. When is she going to wait around? Only if one has a zechut. The zechut of the Torah. He's learning Torah. Hashem says, you know what? Anybody that comes your way, say no. Go out with him, give him 1 or 2 days. Show that you're going out, right? But I'm going to put it into your mind to say no. You're not going to want him. Why? Because the one who's really yours is still there. He's still waiting. So if somebody has a zechut, if Hashem wants him to really get his real soulmate, she will not marry anybody else. And everybody will wonder, oh, miskena. Oh, how sad that she's not getting married. Don't worry, Hashem is preparing something for her, right? She's not going to lose out, neither is he going to lose out. But that's only if he has some zechut. If he's going to college, he may not necessarily. He may still have some zechut, but it may not necessarily happen. So there's a chance that one will lose his true soulmate. Now, does that mean he has no more luck? No, we said last week that even if he lost his true soulmate, there's still some wonderful women out there, young women who can come a close second, right? Close third, or whatever. Better something than nothing, right? Obviously, the best is the real soulmate, but if there's nothing else, you take whatever is there. Then we have second kind of a delay. Second kind of a delay is unfortunate too. Bareranim, as we call them in Hebrew, the picky ones. I want a girl that's 5'9", blonde, with blue eyes. She has to have at least a master's, and the dowry I'm expecting from her father is at least a down payment for a house in Hancock Park. Otherwise, I'm not willing to hear anything. I didn't exaggerate. There are people who have more or less that on their list. No, it's really not an exaggeration. Maybe they'll give in if she has green eyes instead of blue eyes. Yeah, maybe, But they won't give in on the money and the looks, right? These are called picky. There are some people who are picky not about money, they're picky about yehus. Depending on where her father is from and who her grandfather was, and, can't marry just anybody from the village. It has to be something more important. People have these crazy ideas. Now, sometimes Hashem says, you know what, it's okay. The one I have in mind for you happens to meet the criteria that you have. So he's lucky that he wants a girl with money because he wants to learn Torah. And Hashem says, you know what, the one I have in mind for you, don't worry. Her father will be able to support you. So sometimes it works out, sometimes it does, that what he wanted, he got. But it has to be reasonable. It has to be for the real reasons. It has to make sense. But if the man is not such a great individual and he has outlandish, excessive demands, what we call very picky, he may simply not get married, simply delay his marriage. He may eventually get married at 39 with a convert. Now, there's nothing wrong with converts. Just like there's nothing wrong with marrying a divorcee or a widow. Nothing wrong whatsoever. You can have a beautiful life. But that was not his soulmate. Not at 39. I don't think so. Right? So, therefore, if you want the right one, you don't want to be picky. You don't want to push it off unnecessarily. Then you have individuals who are very, very smart. They think they're smart. They say, I want to try it out first. I want to try it out. Live together first for 2.5 years. See what she's really like or see what he's really like. And then decide on getting married. Have you heard of that? Yeah, that's a problem too. Not in the very Orthodox circle, because it's asur. It's forbidden to do. You can't try it out. You have to have faith. It's a leap of faith. Bitachon b'Hashem. You get into it, and hopefully things will work out. But those who want to try it out, they're doing a tremendous disservice for themselves. First of all, they may be trying it out with the wrong person. They get used to this kind of lifestyle of living together. They're committing an isur and avirah of living with inidah, and therefore they're bringing upon themselves tremendous accusations, kitrugim lemala. And in this way, they're also going to lose their soulmate and not be very, very happy. This is not healthy, it is not correct, it's not right to try it out. You go out, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll talk about it next week, how many times to go out, some tips on dating, and how to know if you've met the real one. That's for next week. But to try it out, to actually live together, that's asur. Okay, these are understandably not the right thing to do. But what about those who do not fit into all of these categories? Good young men and good young women who have not found their soulmate, who are not married yet, and they're in their late 20s or early 30s. Right? Because we said before 35, after 35, one should really start analyzing his life a little bit. What has happened? 35 years, half of my life has gone by. So remember, 35 is after 35, you don't want to take a chance of getting there. But before that, it's still possible. There's another possibility. Late 20s, early 30s. And that is really the majority. Many of the singles fit into that category. What is happening to them? What is happening to them are ikuvim. They're delays, but these delays are me'ashamayim. They're not because they're picky. They're not because they pushed it off. They're not because they want to try it out. They're young men and young women who did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Great people. Nice men and women. Their ikuvim are mi'ashamayim. Obviously, they're not responsible. They did not do anything wrong. And as we will see, they did everything right. So what could it be? What could the ikuvim mi'ashamayim be? I'll be honest with you, he didn't tell me all his reasons or why he delays people. But I'm going to give you a few ideas, just a few ideas. This is a generation that is unique, as we said before, in some very, very disturbing ways, right? But it's also unique in a very beautiful way. There are many balei teshuvah. There are many balei teshuvah, people who have returned to Judaism in this generation. You did not have this 150 years ago. Now Hashem says, wait a minute, okay. Shimon, who was a drug dealer between the age of 20 and 25, and after 25 he went to Kathmandu to do some yoga, and then he went to speak to some guru, and then he went to try something else in South America. Finally, Baruch Hashem has come back at the age of 31 and has become a Baal Teshuvah. Real Baal Teshuvah, learning, praise, tefillin, Shabbat, everything. Now Hashem, of course, loves this Baal Teshuvah. Hashem loves Baal Teshuvah. Hashem has to now provide him with a wife. Where is his soulmate? What do you say? Is she still around? What do you say?
Yes.
Yes? But he's 31.
Doesn't matter, yes.
Why? How do you know she's still around?
Because he had to go through this process, and at age 31, it's as if he's 23.
Right? Very true. It's possible, but not 100% for sure. Baal Teshuvah will for sure, Bezrat Hashem, marry the right person, because Hashem is the one who's in charge, and He will give him the right person. That right person may or may not be his soulmate. And what does it depend? It depends if he has any zechuyot, any merits whatsoever. If a person has any merits, Hashem will say, you know what? Your wife will wait for you, even if it means waiting for 10 years. Or the more likely scenario, and why you are right, is because his wife is a Balat Shuvah too. And Hashem says, I keep track of everybody. I know where all the neshamot are. Only I know. She's a Balat Shuvah. He's a Balat Shuvah. They cannot get married when they're not Balat Shuvah. Because if they did get married before, they would destroy themselves. They would get divorced. They would not be as successful. It doesn't mean a person who's not religious cannot have a good life. I'm not saying that. But Hashem knows that if they are to wait, they will have a much better life than if they had not waited. Hashem says, you know what? Rachel or Sarah or Tammy or whatever, you know what? You just became a Balat Teshuvah. Just wait one more year. Your husband is a little slower than you. You become Balat Teshuvah. And sure enough, they both become Balat Teshuvah, and Hashem brings them together. There are many wonderful stories to show that. People who became Balat Teshuvah, they married later. This is a generation of Balat Teshuvah. This is therefore a generation where people are not getting married at 21, 22, and 23, because there's a lot of people who are only becoming Balat Teshuvah when they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And they will many times meet the best and the right one, like you said. But it could be that they will not marry the real one, because she was born into a religious family. And he was born to a religious family too. He went off the right path. For 10 years he was fooling around, doing the wrong things. And this kind of Baal Teshuvah, who, if he does not have enough merit, Hashem says, I'm sorry. She's not going to wait. She's a good girl. She went to Bet Yaakov. There's somebody nice for her. And then he will have to settle for something else, which will also be good, but not the original one. So Baal Teshuvah is one reason Hashem has to therefore wait to bring about their soulmates. Another reason of why Hashem delays it sometimes, some sort of cheshbon from Shamayim. Cheshbon from Shamayim that we do not know. That Hashem says, you know what, the time is not right yet. Either because the man is not available. He's not available. He's married to someone else. Just wait a little bit and he'll become available. Or it's just not the right time. You will meet, you will see each other, but you'll have to wait 2 years. Just like with my parents. They met in 1956. They all were pretty much ready to get married to each other. But some of the friends of my father says, you're going to go live in the jungle of the Amazons? Because my mother's from Brazil. You know, there's a big jungle. It's called the Amazons. There's no Yiddishkeit. There's no Torah there. You're going to go live there. You're going to marry her and go live there. And somehow that interfered it appears like it interfered with their own interest of wanting to get married. They were both very happy. And somehow it didn't happen in 1956. 1958, somebody thought of the idea, oh, whatever, by the way, whatever happened about those two? They liked each other. Well, why don't you set them up together? And in doing these 2 years, both my father and mother dated quite a few people, and none of them were the same. Each one thought about the other one all the time. Nothing compares to that. And sure enough, somebody in 1958, 2 years later, thought of the idea again, and this time it worked. I guess I had to be born 2 years later. That's the only explanation I have. Why did it have to happen? Nobody knows. Did they interfere? Did they ruin it? No. We don't believe that. We don't believe anybody has the right or the ability to just spoil something which has the potential of working out unless Hashem agrees. Unless somebody is silly and pushes it off on his own. Like we said before, people have met their soulmate when they were young. They just didn't think of want to get married. But other than that, nobody just spoils it for others. It was not meant to be that. It was meant for them to see each other, but for some reason not to marry. Then there's a third reason why people are not getting married on time, and that is the most unfortunate of all of them, that there is a delay because of kiturgim, because of accusations. They're doing terrible things. They're either not honest in their conduct with people, in their business. They are living with goyot, with non-Jewish women, or with Jewish girls, but not in Kedusha. They're doing the wrong things. When people do some terrible things, that brings about accusations. And what is the accusation going to do? Hashem, you're about to give him the most precious gift of all, his soulmate. He doesn't deserve it. She doesn't deserve it. And because of that, it doesn't happen right away until the person does something to deserve her or him, if he or she is still around. So one has to be very, very careful in that he does not do anything that may hurt his chances of finding his real soulmate. Just like to summarize, even though B'ezrat Hashem will be talking about it next week a little bit more in detail as to what one can do to find his soulmate, how one can identify his soulmate, some tips on dating, B'ezrat Hashem next week, but just to summarize what one should be careful with and what's really important in order to find the real soulmate. Don't forget that perhaps one of the most important things is to pray. We find that prayer was effective for bringing about children, for Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, who were barren in the very beginning. Hashem wanted them to pray to him. Hashem sometimes holds something back just so that we should turn to him. And the greatest and most effective prayer is Dafka Tfilat HaCholeh, the one who is sick, the one who is in need of something. Not all the people who are saying Tehillim and Tfilot. Obviously, we value all the Tehillim and Tfilot of the Rabbim, of the Tzibur. But Hashem wants Dafka Tfilat HaCholeh, Dafka the one who is in need of something, need of refuah, need of a zivug. Dafka him, Dafka his tefillah, if it's a real tefillah, that could be the most effective thing of all. Have bitachon b'Hashem, do not lose yourself. Have faith in Hashem that he's mezavek zivugim. He's in charge. He knows what he's doing. Be very careful from your conduct or how you conduct yourself with people. Not to push it off unnecessarily, not to be overly picky. Lishtadel, to make an effort, a sincere effort, if something comes up, to look at it. Especially if you're the man has to have the initiative, much more than the woman. The woman doesn't have to travel all over the world to find her soulmate. The man does. It's his job to look for her. Some are lucky, like Yitzchak. Rivka came to him. And some are like Yaakov. They need to go to Rachel and Leah. You don't know, Sally, how, you don't know. No one knows how it's going to happen. They may come knocking on your door. Oh, is Mr. Friedman at this address? No, you got the wrong address. Oh, by the way, what's your name? And that is how they found each other. They thought it was a mistake. They knocked on the wrong door. But it was the right address that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent them. We don't know how it's going to happen. Right? You have to have bitachon Hashem. You have to make an effort, any reasonable effort. And last but not least, you have to want the right things. You have to want to get married, l'shem shamayim, to have a Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael, to have a Jewish home, to have children, to have a family. You have to want to marry for the right reasons. The reason I added that is because a lot of people don't value marriage as much, and that is why they chose not to marry. So you have to be careful with having the right hashkafa, the right perspective, that marriage is something important. I just want to share with you what I found in Perek Kuf Yutet in Tehillim, just some of the ideas of why people are still single. and what's important for them to do, that they should get married in time. Perek Kuf Yutet 119, which begins with the letter Aleph, says, Ashrei Tmimei Derech, Haolchim B'Torat Adonai. Fortunate are the ones who are sincere, who are Tmimim, who have Bitachon in Hashem. They have no reason to fear. So we find the Tmimut. We find Ashrei Notzrei Edotav B'chol Lev Yidreshuhu. B'chol Lev Yidreshuhu means that they seek Him with all their heart. And that means two things. It means that they do an ishtadlut, they seek. And it also means that they pray. They seek Hashem, that means they pray to Him. Aflo pa'alu avla. They have not corrupted their ways, their mannerisms. They have not done any avil, any injustice to anyone. In other words, they have not brought upon themselves any accusations. Bidrachav halachu. Atat tzivita pikudecha lishmor meod achalai yikonu derachai lishmor chukecha. May my ways be correct. May I be walking on the right path. May I be doing the right things. May I not be choosy. May I be looking for the right things. And of course, the observance of the mitzvot, to do the right things. These are just some of the ideas of what we spoke about. If one follows in the ways of Hashem, if one follows the Torah, there's no reason for him to fear. There are many segulot, of which we'll discuss next week. B'ezrat Hashem next week, I hope to be able to hand out copies, as I did once in the past, of many ideas, prayers, or things that one can do to help it bring about faster. But just, I want to remind you, segulot, there are many segulot. The power of a segula is not more powerful than prayer. All a segulot, there's different kinds of segulot which are helpful in removing kitrugim, accusations, but more than anything else, they act like a prayer. Why not speak with your own words to Hashem? That is even more powerful than all the segulot. And I guarantee you, this is a guarantee that I can give every one of you, no matter what, how old you are, what stage in life you are. Anybody who does the right thing, anybody that is a good person, anybody who sincerely prays to Hashem, and anybody who wants truly to get married, there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, Lo yimna tov laolechim betamim. No way in the world will Hashem hold back tov, the spouse, the other half of an individual, for those who go with him bitmimut, who are sincere with him. I have no doubt in the world that everybody has a zivug, for the most part. Everybody, B'ezrat Hashem, will meet up with him or her at the right time, as long as you do the right things. And what are those right things, B'ezrat Hashem? We spoke a little bit about it tonight, and we'll continue next week. The main thing is, for those of you who may not come next week, don't lose hope. Turn to Hashem in prayer, and if you are sincere and you really have an interest in getting married and you're not picky and you don't push it off, there's no reason in the world why you should not meet him. So I want to wish all of those of you who are still single that B'ezrat Hashem, next time I see you, you will have found him, B'ezrat Hashem.